Hello everyone, this is Jason for Primetime Aquatics, and in this video I wanted to talk about a concept that is commonly confused, and that is the use of dither fish in the aquarium hobby. There's a good way to do it and a not so good way, and we're going to talk about that today. Hope you enjoy the video. So yes, there are a couple different ways that dither fish can be used. The first way is when people put fish in an aquarium with the intent on having them be chased and harassed by more aggressive fish. And usually this stems from, I've got an aggressive fish in the tank, it's chasing some other fish that I really care about. I'll put in smaller, faster moving fish, and I'll have those aggressive fish chase those instead. That, generally speaking, is a bad idea for a couple reasons. One, there's the ethical part where you're putting fish in a tank for the sole purpose of having them be chased around their entire life and take some of the aggression from the more aggressive fish so that other fish don't feel the aggression quite as much. Now, there are some practical implications to that when you do that, besides just the fact that you're putting fish in a tank knowing that they're going to be chased around the rest of their life. One, when fish are chased around by aggressive fish, a couple things are going to happen. They're probably going to get fin nipped, and there might be some damage to their body. Both of those things can introduce disease into your tank. Not only that, but fish that are under constant stress have a weakened immune system, and therefore they are also going to be prone to disease a lot more than healthy fish. So by putting those dither fish in your tank and having those more aggressive fish chase them around, you're actually introducing stressors into your tank that may damage the fish that you actually care about. And so that is one major reason why I don't like to use fish for that purpose. I would rather just manage the aggression by making sure I have the appropriately sized tank, by making sure the fish that are in there, if they're aggressive, have fish that can meet that aggression in terms of the same personalities so that we don't have problems later on. And of course, if we do have problems, we have a backup plan where we can move fish around until they have a way to get along with one another. Now, if that's not you, if you don't have lots of tanks like we do, we really need to do our research before we go and buy a tank full of South American or Central American cichlids or African cichlids and then find out the tank is too small or the mix doesn't work, and now we have to take them back to the store. But dither fish is not really a great way to solve that problem. It can and often does introduce disease into your tank. So how can we properly use dither fish? The way that I like to use them is typically to bring out shyer fish. And so if you've got fish that like to hide, or maybe you just got some fish and they're not really coming out much and they normally should, that's the proper application to use a dither fish. And so in other words, what you're going to do is you're going to add fish to a fish tank that are normally active and quite frankly oblivious to their surroundings and don't spook as easily. And so when they are out, that makes the fish that are a little bit more reclusive and like to hide, it makes them a little bit more confident, and you might see them more often. Now, there are lots of options when it comes to dither fish. I tend to like fish that are going to match the size and temperament of the fish that's already in the tank. And I want something that's not going to wind up picking on the fish that's a little bit scared. So some of the fish that we've used in smaller tanks would be things like tetras. Again, we want to make sure that the size is appropriate for the fish that's hiding. So we don't want to add really small tetras because we've got some larger cichlids hiding, and then all of a sudden those smaller fish go missing because they became lunch. But I do like tetras. I really like rasboras because they tend to be out and about and fairly gentle. And then I also have used guppies in the past. Guppies can be very, very active. Now you have to be careful here because what you don't want is your guppies to be fin nipped once that fish becomes comfortable. But what happens when you've got a medium-sized tank and your fish are a little bit larger? For that, we've got a few options. One might be rainbow fish. In fact, in our Gymnogeophagus tank, when we first set that up, they hid a little bit more than I would like. We put some rainbow fish in there, and that combination has worked out very well. The rainbow fish are always out. They generally, the rainbow fish and the Gymnogeophagus don't really interact with one another much, and so that's been a very good combination. Another option might be using fish like giant Danios. They tend to be very, very active, and they tend to eat very quickly. So if you've got shy fish that eat very slowly, that might not be a great combination. But for the most part, the giant Danios tend to leave a lot of the other fish alone, but they are active. They are open water swimmers. Another one, especially if you're starting to get into those larger sizes, might be silver dollars. They often will leave other fish alone, but tend to stay in the open water, provided that you've got them in a large enough group. If you're dealing with larger fish in a larger tank, you could consider things like ballast sharks and tinfoil barbs. But again, for something like that, you want a very large tank, at least 8 feet long and a couple feet wide, because you're going to want to put a group of them, whether it's ballast sharks or tinfoil barbs, in that tank, and they're going to need some space. They tend to be very, very active. Would love to hear from you in the comments section below. Have you used dither fish in the past? What has worked out well for you? The bottom line is this: when it comes to dither fish, they can be a great option to get some of those fish that are a little bit more shy, a little bit more reclusive, out and in the open. I definitely don't recommend them as fish that are just going to be beat on by larger, more aggressive fish, because you run the risk of introducing disease into your tank. Once those dither fish get stressed and they get a little bit beat up, now you run the risk of bacterial and fungal infections and other types of infections that can then spread to the fish in the rest of the tank. All right, everyone, hope you found this video useful, and if you did, share, subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.